To do. Freckles, tell everybody happy Friday. Yeah, that's all you got. Picking up where I left off because my phone just stopped recording for some reason. We're going to go and adjust the tiller on my EXE Scream riser so that it's negative. And if you guys remember when I talked about tiller the other day, tiller is the difference between the width from the bowstring to the top of the riser from the bowstring to the bottom of the riser. Those two widths, you subtract the distance of the bottom one from the distance of the top one, and that should end up being a positive number. That on a normal bow, you want the top a little wider than on the bottom. So you get a positive number for the tiller, and it's going to be a positive number like 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1/2 an inch at the most extreme. When you are string walking in barebow, you're drawing so far down the knocking point, so far down the bowstring from the regular knocking point, that actually most people find that the bow will shoot smoother if you instead have a negative tiller, meaning the bottom is in fact wider. That bottom gap from bowstring to the edge of the riser is wider than it is at the top. And that's what I need to adjust. Coming out of the factory, my EXE Scream had a neutral tiller, a 0 tiller. The width at the top was exactly the same as the width at the bottom. Something like 6 3/16 of an inch is what it was. And I need to set it so that it's negative. I need to make the bottom wider. That's what I'll be working on. I'll be doing that because I talked with a guy named Moose at Lancaster Archery. Cool. Hey Moose, shout out to you guys. Moose was really cool, stepped me through it. He said that the outside of the tiller bolt is the big black one that touches the limb. That's the one that you see. And there's a little set bolt, a little set screw, hex set screw that's on the back side that you have to crack loose. So you just crack it loose, that's it. And that's supposed to make it so that you can turn the other bolt in or out. And that the other bolt, the big one, is supposed to be set so that it's in the midway point. You could turn the same number of turns in until it's tight as you could turn outside until it literally comes out. That's usually 2 turns in, 2 turns out, maybe even 3 turns in, 3 turns out. But it's supposed to be even, and that's where I think I am right now, but we won't know until we get to knock and feather and actually crack that set screw rather, and then go and see if I can actually turn it. Hey everybody, it's Mark with Voatland Outdoors. Happy Friday! And before we get into the real lesson today, this whole channel is all about me teaching a shooting method called the Voigtland shooting method, a 5-step, 30-second method for shooting any recurve bow, any kind of bow, even a compound bow with deadly accuracy, and all it requires is your fingers and your brain. That 5-step method is what we're going to use. It looks like this. 5 steps. 1, choose your gap. The gap is the distance between the knocking point of the arrow and where you're actually going to draw on the string, that drawing point. 2, you're going to draw back under your chin, not along your cheek. 3, you're going to look down the left edge of the string. 4, you're going to put the tip of the arrow right smack on the target, not above, not below, not right, not left. Right smack on the target. And 3, you're going to make a small motion release. You don't have a shoulder, you don't have an elbow, you don't have a wrist. All you got is this finger, like that. And you'll be able to shoot well. We're going to take that Voigtland shooting method and we're going to see how we can actually prepare and even go into competition with little or no practice. Don't have to devote years to it, and you can get into competition and feel good about your shots. Then in today's session, we're going to actually learn how to adjust the tiller bolts on my EXE Scream riser or any other ILF riser that has those adjustments. That's what the lesson's going to be, but it's always going to be reviewing the Voigtland string walking method. 1, choose your gap. 2, draw back under your chin. 3, look down the left edge of that string. 4, put the tip of the arrow right smack on the target. And 5, make a small motion release. Small motion means small errors. That's it, let's get started looking at those tiller bolts. Okay, we're looking down here. Do a little adjusting. Let's see if that gets the job done. We've got the EXE riser with ILF fittings on it. There's a main ILF bolt on the top, and then there's a set screw that's on the back side that you have to loosen first. And you're going to loosen it by turning it counterclockwise, anti-clockwise as you look at it. So here's my wrench. I think it's actually English, believe it or not. It's 3/16 inch. I'm going to go in here and we're going to loosen it up. There it is. It's inside. We're going to turn it and it's going to go loose on me. A half a turn is all you're going to put, maybe one turn. Then you're going to pull out because you need this again. Now that you've done that, this should be turnable by hand, and it is. If it's in the proper place, it's in the middle. It's in the middle of its total travel. If it's a total of 6 turns, then it should be at turn number 3. So you could go 3 more out and 3 more in before you bottom out. This came to me actually, set all the way into the bottom, bottomed out. That was dumb. Because now I don't know how to, now I have no way of going back and forth. I can only go in one direction, which isn't cool. So the first thing I'm going to do with my bow is actually turn it all the way in until I can't feel it, until I feel it bottom out. And I'm going to turn to see how far I can turn out. I'm going to turn a half, 1, a half, 2, a half, 3, a half, 4, a half, 5, a half, 6. There it is all the way out. A good stopping point then is to turn. It's still tight there. Now if I tighten this up on this side, this will get snug. It won't go anywhere. And I'm going to turn it back in. A half, 1, a half, 2, a half, 3. Now it's in the appropriate place to begin making adjustments. Now I will snug it down by turning it on this side all the way in. I'm going to turn it clockwise until I feel it snug up. There, it's snug. Don't kill yourself snugging this up, it just has to not move. Now this side should be unmovable, and it isn't. That's in the appropriate position. I could go 3 in, I could go 3 out. That's where you adjust your tiller. Why it came bottomed out, I have no idea. I'm going to do the same thing to this side. I'm going to loosen it up. First, crack it open with the key. Now it's loose. I'm going to bottom it out first. Looks like I got to loosen this up a little bit more. I'm going to try to bottom it out first. I can't feel a gap there anymore. No more gap, so it's bottomed out. And now I'm going to turn it out 3 turns. I know this is the same as the other one, so if I bottom it out, I just have to come out 3 turns. Here we go. A half, 1, a half, 2, a half, 3. There. Now I could tighten this, but if you guys remember, what I need to do on this bow is make the bottom, and this is the bottom, I need to make this a little bit wider than the other one. The way to do that is to loosen this bolt out so that the bottom one, the limb, flexes a little bit more, which means the gap here is going to get a little bit wider. So I'm going to actually turn this one. We're going to start 1 half. There's 4 turns out. 1 half. 5 turns out is where we're going to start. That should make this very pronounced. When I put the limbs on and the string back on, that should make a very pronounced, wider tiller on the bottom. So the overall tiller should end up being negative. Let's tighten up and see if that's true. Now we're going to go back in here, tighten this up. Wish I had T-wrenches here instead of this, but this is all that I carry in my Jeep. Tightening, here it is. Now that's snug and tight. This should no longer be movable at all, and it's not. Let's put the limbs on, let's put the string on, and let's measure that tiller, and I'll show you how you can do that, not with a not with a tape measure, but just with your arrow. That's all that you need. So I'll pause. Putting my limbs together, and I'm not seeing something that I like. I just put the bottom limb in, and I notice that it's not even making contact right here. What's that tell me? This is up too high to start. That maybe what the EXE Scream is capable of doing is only plus or minus 2. So I'm going to loosen it up, screw it all the way down to the bottom, and then count up 2 to get to middle, and then count up 2 to get to the top. Right now it's at 5, I think, out of 6. Out of 6 turns it's at 5, when it really should be at 4, so I'm going to lower it 1. And we'll see if it makes contact right here, because I don't feel comfortable that this isn't making contact. Well, maybe it is. Yes, it is. Right on the midsection there, it's making contact. Yeah, it is. And that's as good as it's going to get, too. It's making contact right on that line, if you guys can see that. Good enough. We're going to keep shooting. Let me pause and string the bow. Okay, the bow is strong. Here's my bow. And without using a measuring tool, I can tell you I have it built in. But this proper brace right here is supposed to be about 7.5 inches. 7.5 inches is the distance from the tip of my thumb to the back of my hand. This is called a fist meal. So if you put your thumb in there, I should see about a 1-inch gap. This is 7. This is about 6 3/4 inches. And so I see about a 1/2 inch gap here. I'm doing good if I see that kind of a gap. That's perfect. There's a quick test for your brace height. You're not going to have to kill yourself trying to maintain that brace height like plus or minus an 1/8 of an inch or anything like that. That's crazy. What we want to measure next is this distance, and we want to compare it to this distance. How are we going to do that? We're just going to actually take an arrow, and we're going to put that arrow right in the same spot each time, and I'm going to measure. This is at a right angle, and I'm touching top of the top right there, and this is a right angle right here, and there's my marker, and it should be, I should have a gap. It should be less than that at the top here. So what we see the gap between my thumb right there? We have about a 1/4 of an inch difference. Let's just do that one more time. Yeah. About a 1/4 of an inch difference. So it's a negative tiller. The top is narrower than the bottom. So the difference, if subtract the bottom from the top, you get a negative 1/4 inch. Let's go shoot this bow. Let's go shoot this bow and see if it actually stops flying my arrows like this and instead drives them straight in. I'll go set up and let you know how it goes. I'm just about to shoot with this negative tiller, negative 1/4 inch of tiller, so the bottom's wider than the top for the very first time, and I thought you guys might want to watch. Turn it a little bit so it's facing me. We're looking that my arrow doesn't start to go like this, and then not even straighten out, it's actually landing on the target like this. Theoretically, parabolic motion looks like this. So if anything, my arrow is supposed to be landing with the tail slightly higher and the nose slightly lower. When I was landing, I noticed actually not even horizontal, it's like this. That might explain the loud noise. It's coming in like this. It isn't even corrected yet. But we want to try it to be landing like this. Not even level, it should be ending, it should already be starting to fall a little bit into the target. Find out. Here it goes. I haven't warmed up or anything. This is the first shot of the day. Remember my 3 sloppy habits? Got to make sure my release is small. Got to make sure that I'm pointing the web of my hand right at the target, pushing it in, and holding my shoulder up until I hear the smack. Then I can let my arm down. Those 3 things are on my mind. And hoping that my bow doesn't fall apart because I've never adjusted the tiller before. Here goes. No reason to not use the same gap. seemed like it went like this, like the back of my arrow went down like that. But I got to shoot more than one. You know, I can watch that because with the Voigtland shooting method, the tip of the arrow is right on the target, and I'm watching the tip of the arrow, so I see the whole motion of the arrow. My eye never leaves it, and I can see if this is what's happening. Let's shoot a few more. Seemed even worse, like it's more pronounced. I may end up having to go the other way. Maybe my problem is I don't have a positive tiller. We're finding out, you and me together. Very much like that. I'll shoot the other 4 arrows. I think I got 7 arrows today. Yeah, I got 7 arrows because I brought 2 spares, 2 new ones. All right, now I'm down to a total of 6. And it doesn't even have time to recover. We're going to go and validate that by looking at the target in a second. Then we're going to flip the tiller around and see what effect that has. Or I could shoot the bow upside down. Ha ha ha, it was a joke. Yeah, definitely. Going like this as it exits. Like it's pulling harder on the bottom than it is on the top. So there's an imbalance that's causing this, and we needed to pull harder on the top. And I just went the wrong direction, that I made this narrower, weaker, instead of stronger. So now we know what direction to go, but let's go see. You guys find this kind of stuff useful. It's just a little bit of science of archery. We're looking to see if the arrows are coming down like this, even horizontal, but not still looking like they're rising. Let's see if I tip my camera. They look like they're falling. But it looks like they're falling because my arrows, my fletching corrected it, not because they're supposed to be like that. We're going to try going the other direction, a whole positive 1/4 of an inch tiller. So back to the drawing board. Hey, just so you know what I've been up to, I loosened the bottom, I loosened the top, I loosened the set screw way out because you have to turn it way out if you want to turn the bolts all the way in. I turned both bolts all the way out. This one on top, all the way in, sorry. I turned it all the way in, I bottomed it out. On this one, I turned it all the way out, I bottomed it out. Then I turned the bottom one out 1. I turned the top one out 3, which means I should have 2 turns wider at the top than at the bottom. So I should end up with a positive tiller, that this will be wider than this is. So it should be a pronounced positive tiller. Let's put the limbs on, let's restring it, and let's see what that actually turns out to be the case. Be right back. Okay. I reach inside my pocket, get my glasses on. We've adjusted the tiller, and now we're about to measure it with the same arrow. So, before we had a negative tiller, the bottom was 1/4 of an inch wider than that same position at the top. Now we're going to measure, and it should, if this one's wider, and if I measure it first, I get this perpendicular right where my thumb is. Okay, there's my gap. Now that should be wider than at the bottom, and it's definitely wider. It's wider by 3/8 of an inch. Easily 3/8 of an inch positive tiller. All right, should be interesting. Let's shoot and actually see what changes. The top is more tilted back than the bottom. That's what makes that's why the tiller is wider there, which means I would think it would make it weaker. So I don't know what to think. Technically, it's supposed to make it stronger, like it's pre-tensioning the top, so that hopefully the bottom, the arrow gets lifted up a little bit, and we're getting closer towards an even tension on the top than on the bottom. We're about to find out. Let me get my camera set up and we'll shoot again. Okay. Experiment number 2. Experiment number 1 was negative tiller. This bottom was wider than this top by a 1/4 of an inch, minus 1/4. Now we've gone the other direction, and now the top is 3/8 of an inch wider than the bottom. A positive 3/8 tiller, 3/8 of an inch tiller. Everything else stays the same. Let's shoot. I'll call out what I see even as I shoot. What we're looking for is to make sure the arrow's not going like this as it shoots out of the bow. Instead, it comes straight out. I don't want it to go up in the back either and have to get straightened out. I want it to come straight out of the bow. Here goes. Not positive. Still seems like it's coming out like this. I may have to get bare shafts and shoot those. Shooting straight, but I'm still seeing this in the end. I can't say I see an improvement. If anything, it seems like the problem is still there. It's going like this. Even after changing the tiller, and I'm just, my mind is just boggling over that. How I could make such a significant change in the tiller and see no effect in how the arrow is shooting. Going down, I mean, I'm shooting accurate, it just doesn't look good. Let's go take a peek, guys. This may be back to the drawing board. I've got a positive tiller and still no change. The whole idea was it was supposed to be a negative tiller that fixes this. But you'll see, I mean, it's not like I shot crappy. Those are 6 arrows all nicely placed in the blue. So it's a blue, it's an average of blue. 2 reds, 3 blues, 1 black. This one will average out with one of these reds for another blue. So it was definitely it's an inside blue average. Nothing wrong with that. The grouping was nice. You saw how fast I was shooting. Let's look at the angle. I'm trying to line up with horizontal up here and compare. And you notice what you see is a lot of these, they all corrected. They look like they're going down slightly, but look at this guy. I mean, what the hell? How do you get an arrow shooting like that? Decidedly down, not up. I'll tell you why. Because it's missing veins here. It couldn't correct. It couldn't compensate because I'm missing some of my fletchings. So you end up seeing a truer shot there. And the shot is, it's coming in nose high. Now I got 2 choices that come to mind. One of them, I might be shooting too light of a head for this arrow. that I need to go from, I might have 90 grain heads on here and I need to get 100 grain heads or 125 grain heads. These are actually, I think they're 100 grain heads, but maybe I need 125s. Time to run upstairs. That's a cheap experiment without changing anything else on the bow. I'm going to run upstairs. I'm going to see if Andrew has got a handful of 125 grain heads, and I'm going to go and swap them out, and we're going to shoot again and see if we still get the same behavior. Yeah. It might be that my shafts are too stiff for this bow. That might be another thing. Be right back. Okay, Andrew upstairs just gave me a set of 6 125s, and if you want to understand the difference, take a peek here. Look at the size of the barrel right here, and you'll see that it's significantly longer, measurably longer than the other one. So this is a 100 on this side. That's what the arrows came with. This is a 125. We're going to put 6 on, and we're going to see. This is what a lot of people get wrong about spine. They think the spine is all about just one little piece of the shaft of the arrow. But the spine is for the whole arrow. Meaning the spine is calculated. The stiffness of that spine is made up of 2 components, 3 components. How stiff the per unit length of the arrow is, quite all right. How long the arrow is, and how much weight you're pushing at the end. Because the measure of the spine, guys, is the measure of the bend of the arrow as it tries to push a bunch of mass that's on the end. That's stiffness. And that means that the amount of mass that's at the end matters. It matters how long this is, because if I grab a teeny little bit of a broken shaft, it's incredibly stiff. Things get softer the more material they have. The longer the shaft is, the softer the overall spine of the arrow is. The more mass you have over here, the more it's going to resist motion, which means the arrow is going to bend more. The arrow is going to bend more when it takes off because it's trying to push against more inertia, more mass in the arrowhead. We're going to see a different flight. Let's get ready and set up. Shoot. Hold on. Okay. Experiment number 3. Change nothing on the bow. It still has a positive tiller. The top is 3/8 of an inch wider on the top than it is on the bottom. Nothing changed here, but what we're seeing was what looked like, if it had been going left and right, I would be looking and seeing and saying, that shaft is too stiff. I need to make it longer. It's shooting. If it was shooting off to the left, I'd be saying, my shaft's too stiff. And the way that you could fix that is either buy brand new arrows that are softer, buy brand new arrows that are longer, or what I did, add more mass on the tip. So that's what I've done to this set of 6 arrows, is I've added 125 grain arrowheads, tips, instead of 100. I've literally increased the front, the mass that this arrow is trying to push, by 25%. Let's see what happens. Now some of you are going to ask, you more clever ones, hey Mark, you just added more mass to the front. Do you have to change the gap, the angle that you shoot? Yes. If it was, not a lot, if it was 3 3/4 fingers, now it's going to be about 3 1/4. That's what I'm going to start. I'll start there to be safe. I'm going to bring the back of the arrow down a little bit to compensate for the fact that I'm throwing a heavier arrow. What I'm looking for is to see if that dive, that tail riding like this, starts to dissipate, if I'm headed in the right direction. Too early to tell. Thought I saw the tail kick down still. Still a tail kick. It's still there. It seems maybe a little quieter, but it might be just the shape of the head. Can't tell at this point. I'm going back to my old gap of 3 3/4 fingers. Same level of noise now that I'm on paper. And at the bottom of the tail is kicking down. Still down and landing down. My gap does need to change. I'm going to go back to 3.5. Everything's landing low but grouped. This one I'm going to go 3 1/4. Now I went a little high. Let's go take a peek and talk. This is useful for me too. We went to a positive tiller, still saw the same arrow kicking, the tail going under and then correcting. And now, even when I shoot heavier arrows, see how I was grouping everything? They were grouping and then I actually changed my gap and it shot high. Let's see what they look like from a distance. They do look like they're coming in tipped a little more down, but it's all because my fletchings are compensating. This is the one that the telltale. Notice how it is it's under horizontal. It's not going negative like this like it needs to be. What to do? I want to get radical and go the other way. I literally want to introduce a negative tiller of like a 1/2 inch and try that just to be sure. So that's what we're going to do next. Same 125s on here, but a huge negative tiller, a significant, not minus 1/4, but minus 1/2. So that's going to be, what did we see? We're at 3 up here and 1 down here. So with a 2-turn difference, I ended up with almost a 1/2 inch of tiller. That means that I have to turn this one all the way to 0 and this one all the way out to 4 to try to get something significant. That's what we'll be trying next. Here goes. Okay, here's what we got. Again, I loosened both set screws, top and bottom, and then I bottomed this one out. The top one, the top tiller bolt, I turned all the way in. I bottomed it out and turned it out 1, and the bottom one, I turned all the way in and then turned it out 4. So I have a difference between the top and the bottom of 3 full turns wider. It should be 3 whole turns looser on the bottom. So that looser should make for a much wider, pronounced wider gap, a much wider brace, if you will, on the bottom than on the top. And I should have a negative tiller of about a negative 1/2 inch. Let's string the bow and see what it comes out to be. Okay, with 1 turn on the top, okay, with 1 turn on the top and 3 turns on the bottom, 4 turns in fact, the bottom should now be pronounced decidedly wider. So let's measure it first. There, and now we should have a noticeable gap when I move that to the top. And we do. It's about what it was before, about 3/8 of an inch negative this time, that the top is narrower than the bottom. Let's set up and go shoot. Experiment number 4, and then I'm done for the day. 2 modifications, 1 to the bow, 1 to the arrows. To the arrows, I went back to my 100 grain heads. So they're what I normally shoot, the way I buy them. This one, we now have a very negative tiller. The top half is 3/8 of an inch narrower. The top half looks like this, and the bottom half looks like this. 3/8 of an inch wider. So we're hoping that's going to pull the bottom of the arrow, pull the back of the arrow up as it travels instead of letting it slip like this and then correct. Here we go. Glasses off. First shot. Original gap. Saw it go down. No denying it. I saw it go down. Like it had no change. Let's shoot the rest of it and see. Yeah, same thing. If anything is worse, a little bit worse, more noticeable. Hard to tell. It's not better. It's definitely not better. Makes for a noisy landing when it lands like that. Let's go look at it. I can only think of one major change that I want to make today. And that is I'm going to dramatically change the knocking point up like a ½ inch just to see if it's got something to do with the arrow rest. But I mean, it still shoots good. Look at that, bullseyes. It's just shooting weird. It shoots loud. They're coming in. This one looks okay. This one looks okay, but this one, it's below horizontal, below horizontal, below horizontal. That can't be right. That's not good parabolic motion like this. If anything, I'm up here aiming like this. Those arrows should always be coming in at a downward angle into the target slightly. And they're not. And it's just weird. Let's try the one last thing and then I'm done for the day. We're going to dramatically change the knocking point up, literally the width of one finger. It's going to look weird. I just want to see if it changes things. And if it literally changes the way the bow shoots, I'll know, like it or not, it's got something to do with string walking and having to change the knocking point. So let me pause and we'll go shoot. More thinking out loud here. I buy these arrows because I shoot them out of my 55 pound bow all these years. It's for a 55 pound bow that I still pull 3-4 inches further back than 28 inches. So I'm pulling 65 pounds. That's what these arrows are spined for. There's a very real chance that these 500 spined arrows are simply way over spined for a 35 pound bow pulled back to 45 pound bow to 45 pounds. And I need to get 600 or even 700 or even 800 spined arrows. And then they'll bend like they're supposed to. I don't want to compensate by using a lot of mass in the tip. I'd rather get nice 100, 125 grain heads, because that's what I hunt with, and then get the right arrows for this bow. So the last change we're going to make is going to be, the last change we're going to make is going to be a significant change of this knocking point. Let's go here. Do you see where my thumb is right now? I'm going to literally push all of my speed buttons all the way up like that. So then now when I knock, it's going to look really wild. It's going to be up like this. I just got to see if it makes a difference. Here goes. 6 shots with a wild knocking point. Keep in mind, let's try it. 3 1/4 fingers, that gap between the knocking point and your drawing point, that never changes. Oh, straight as an arrow. Holy shit. It went in like this, boom, I could see it. Instead of it going like this, it just went right into the target. Wow, what an eye opener. Again. Keep shooting. Not convinced yet. Saw it twice. Definitely did not see the kick down. Definitely did not. going straight in, like this. And you know, I can watch it the whole way because I'm watching the head right from the beginning. So I see the butt right afterwards. I see the whole arrow. And I'm right behind it. There's no misinterpreting what I'm seeing. Yeah, Jesus. Wow. Wild knocking point. I'm kind of going all over the place. That's me, just being hasty, like I want to go look at those arrows right away. But I got a feeling we're going to definitely see them pointed down slightly as they go, where they land. Come on, let's go take a peek. Interesting. Wow, I didn't think you were supposed to change the knocking point that much. I mean, I kind of hear about it, up a whole ½ inch. I hear people talk about it even going up an inch. But those are my arrows. The grouping's hasty, but it felt good. And more importantly, when we look, you'll see that all the arrows are coming in, landing in a downward angle like they're supposed to. That was normal. More importantly, when they came in like this. They didn't come in like this and then go into the target. Wow. You know what I got to do next though? I can't leave until I de-string that bow, set the tiller all the way back to 0, where I bottom out both bolts and I'll come out 2 on both sides. So I have a 0 tiller, because that's what I had to begin with when I thought I had a problem related to the tiller. And it turns out I had a problem related to the knocking point. I just needed to make an excessive, an atypically large change in the knocking point. All right, let's get started. Okay, experiment number 5, back to 0. In fact, I've improved it. This one, turn the top all the way in, out 2 turns. All the way in, out 2 turns, tighten it all down. So I have a neutral tiller. Let's double check that. Doesn't matter which side I test first because they're supposed to be the same. So we're going to test right here and there. There is my tiller. Now I'm going to hold that and put it back up here. And yep, we see exactly the same tiller. Good. That tells me the limbs are made well too, because they match top and bottom. We've got the same arrowhead as when we started way back at experiment number 1. We have a 0 tiller, but now we've got the ability to go either in or out. We can either widen the gap or narrow the gap by tightening this or by loosening this. And the only difference is a significantly pronounced knocking point. Not 1 arrow width, not 2 arrow widths, but it probably is closer to closer to 3 arrow widths, ½ an inch above perpendicular. So like a full arrow width above where it should be. Above where typical is if I was going to shoot with a Mediterranean grip. Now we're going to shoot again. Same gap as before. I'll start off with a 3½ finger gap. Shot nice and straight. I went left, it went straight. Looking nicer. I may be able to lower it a little bit. It might actually be humping a little bit. Coming in a little like this at the beginning. We'll see. That'd be okay with me. I'm I'm all over the place because I'm getting tired. We're going to shoot one more round after this. This is not my best round. That one was okay. 8 o'clock blue. Everything else is all over the place. Last shot here. Make it count. Nine o'clock black. I already know they're good. I'm not going to keep you, I'm not going to go drag you down there, but I'm going to go and make a tiny little adjustment lower. Tiny. I'm going to go pull the arrows and we're going to shoot one last time. I swear to God. Be right back. Hey, this is really the last one of the day. We're changing the knocking point down ever so slightly. That I might have overcorrected. And then now the arrow, when it comes out of my bow, is actually going up a little bit like this and then has to correct. Before, my problem was it was coming out like this and then has to correct and doesn't quite make it. It's hitting the target, landing like this. Now I'm noticing it might be actually coming in a little high and coming in tight like that. What are we going to do? We're going to adjust. I'm going to pop this out, grab these, and slide them down. I went down about an arrow width, I think. So it's still way more pronounced than before. But if I put up another arrow, there. So instead of being one arrow width up, now it's 2 arrow widths up is my new knocking point. Let's give it a try. Isn't it cool using speed buttons instead of brass or instead of a string? If I need to make an adjustment like that, I have to pull hard, but in normal use, when I just knock the arrow like this, that thing's not going to move. No way is it going to move. I'm tired. My neck muscles are tired right now. $11 o'clock red. Looked nice too. Wow, we found the cure here. The cure here was the knocking point the whole time. But we had to go through the motions of adjusting that tiller because all of the pundits and everybody said when you get that kind of behavior, you need to have a certain tiller. So at least we learned how to do all of that. Let me shoot some more. We're gonna go look at this target. Not only looks good, it feels good shooting and it flies good. I'm not embarrassed. It seems quieter too landing. Three o'clock blue. Eight o'clock white. Happy Friday. I'm being tired. All right, 2 to go. These gotta matter. What was pinching a little bit? Don't let those things get in the way of your shooting. Stop the shot. Fix it so you don't feel a pinch. If you got an itch, scratch the itch before you get it all out of your system. Scratch those itches before you step up. They're gonna bug the shot. Don't try to put them out of your mind and ignore them. You're not gonna. Your body's gonna subconsciously react to them. So just get rid of them. Itch the scratch. Scratch the itch. $7 o'clock yellow, red on the edge. And last shot. $1 o'clock inside red. Let's go take a look at those guys. We're going to want to see this. Wow, changing your knocking point. When you see the arrow wobble like this, changing the knocking point by a full arrow width was what it took. Aside from the stray, this guy, look at this. Nothing wrong with that. Plus, if we look at them from the side, we see they're coming in slightly tilted into the target like they're supposed to. That's the motion we're looking at. And the result is that the hole is cleaner too. It's coming in like this instead of coming in like this. That makes a bigger noise. You do notice it. I mean, I'm in this echoey chamber here, so I notice when things are going wrong. I bet everybody around you notices too. So there's a quick cure. It's Friday. We've been practicing all week. Next Saturday is the Vegas shoot. I don't know how I'm going to put hours of video into one weekly thing. I'm going to end up probably making 3 lessons, and this one is going to be called How to Adjust the Tiller Bolts on Your EXE Scream Riser. How to turn them back, where to get started, how to understand where you got it, if you got it wrong in the first place from the factory, where to set it before you even take your first shot, and where to go from there. But we got lucky today that when I'm string walking, fingers below the knocking point, significantly, 3 fingers, it turns out a neutral tiller is perfectly fine, and that my major, most significant change was actually in the height of the knocking point, adjusting that not 1 arrow width above perpendicular, but 2 arrow widths, and suddenly I end up with really nice behavior. This is Mark Vogt with Voatland Outdoors. Please feel free to subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you out there. Bye. Cut.